I'm a doctor, and today we're going to talk about why seniors get blood test results wrong. Now, this is very important because if you get your blood test results wrong, it's going to lead to unnecessary medications, unnecessary surgeries, and even death. So in today's video, I am gonna share with you the top 10 mistakes that are made that end up giving people the wrong blood work results. And of course, what you can do to avoid them so that you can have accurate blood test results. So make sure to watch until the end of this video. Number 1. Ordering the wrong blood tests. You know, when you go to the doctor and you say, "Hey, I'm having these symptoms," but the doctor orders completely different blood tests than what should be ordered for those symptoms. In other words, the blood tests don't match the symptoms. And so you need to educate yourself on what blood tests should be ordered for the symptoms that you have. For example, if you're having high blood pressure, the doctor may order a lipid panel or a metabolic panel instead of a complete blood count or CBC, which wouldn't help to diagnose high blood pressure. It would actually be the complete opposite. We want to look at things like your cholesterol levels and things like that. If you have high blood sugar, right, then we want to order the A1C, fasting glucose, and a hemoglobin A1C. Those are going to be much more specific for diabetes versus a BMP or a basic metabolic panel, which looks at your electrolytes, your kidney function, and your calcium level. So there are many differences here, and I'm not able to cover all of them in this one short video. But please make sure you understand what tests you need to have based upon your symptoms. And if you don't know how to find that out, go to my website, nursable.com. There is a blog post on there that will show you exactly how to find out what blood tests to order based on your symptoms. The second mistake is not getting your blood tests done at the same lab. This is very important. Did you know that different labs have different reference ranges? For example, if you go to LabCorp and you get your thyroid tested, they have a slightly different reference range than Quest Diagnostics or any other lab. So for example, let's say that the normal range for H, which is a thyroid hormone, is between 0.4 and 4.0. Well, at LabCorp, that might be 0.5 and 4.5. At Quest, it might be 0.3 and 3.5. So as you can see, they're very similar, but there is a difference. And so what happens is, let's say that you get your blood work done at LabCorp and your H is 4.5. Well, that would be considered abnormal because it's above their reference range. However, if you go to Quest, then that would be a normal result because it's within their reference range. So you can see how confusing this can be if you're not aware of this. And also, the ranges are different depending on what age you are. So let's say that you are over 60. The reference range for your blood work is going to be different than if you are under 60. So again, make sure you know the reference ranges for your age group. And if you don't know how to find that out, just Google it. You can Google it for the specific lab that you are going to use, or you can go to my website, nursable.com. I have a lot of helpful articles on there that will explain this in more detail. The third mistake is sending your blood work to a reference lab. Now, most doctors don't send their blood work to a reference lab. In fact, most doctors send their blood work to a local lab. But if your doctor does send it to a reference lab, then you are probably going to have to wait longer to get your results back, and you are also more likely to receive the wrong results. So I wouldn't recommend doing this unless it's absolutely necessary. The fourth mistake is ordering blood tests with a low sensitivity and specificity. Now, what does that mean? Well, sensitivity means that if you have a certain condition, how accurately does the test pick that up? And specificity means if you don't have that condition, then it should be negative, right? It shouldn't be positive if you don't have the condition. So if the specificity is low, it means that it's very likely to give false positives. So you'll have a high chance of getting a positive result when you really do and have the condition. And likewise, if the sensitivity is low, it has a high chance of giving you a false negative. So you'll test negative when you really should be testing positive. Now, I do and have time to go through every single blood test and tell you which ones have a low sensitivity and specificity, but there are two main blood tests that commonly have a low sensitivity and specificity, and that is the disulfate and the vitamin D blood test. These two blood tests are notorious for being inaccurate, so I wouldn't put a lot of stock into them. Number 5. Having the wrong blood tests performed. Sometimes patients come in and they say, "Oh, I had my hormones checked," or "I had my vitamins checked." But the problem is those aren't blood tests. You can't draw blood and check your hormones or your vitamins. You need to get a specific test for each one of those. For example, if you want to check your estrogen level, you need to order an estradiol blood test. Likewise, if you want to check your progesterone level, you need to order a progesterone blood test. If you want to check your testosterone, you need to order a testosterone blood test. And the same thing applies to checking your vitamins and your minerals. You have to order a specific blood test for each one of those. So make sure you know exactly what blood test you're ordering and what it checks for. Number 6. Not checking your blood work against the reference range. Now your blood work will come back with a little line. That little line represents where your value falls on the reference range. So let's say, for example, your Ch was 6 and the normal range for Ch is between 0.4 and 4.0. Well, your result of 6 would be outside the line because it's above 4.0, and so you would want to bring that up with your doctor. Or let's say your result was below the line, below 0.4, then you would also want to bring that up with your doctor. So you want to look at where your values fall on the reference range and bring anything up that is off to your doctor. Number 7. Doctors don't know how to read blood tests. I've seen this many times. Doctors will order the right blood test, but then they don't know how to interpret the results. So they end up treating something that isn't even there or not treating something that is there. So this is another reason why you need to be your own health advocate. And make sure you know what your blood test results are and what they mean and bring up any abnormalities with your doctor. The 8th mistake is doctors not knowing your symptoms. You know, a lot of times a patient will go to the doctor and they'll give them a list of their symptoms and then the doctor will order blood work. But the problem is the doctor doesn't take the time to correlate the symptoms with the blood test results. So for example, let's say the patient has brain fog, fatigue, dry eyes, but the doctor orders a lipid panel instead of a thyroid panel. Well, that wouldn't make sense because the lipid panel won't help to diagnose brain fog, fatigue, or dry eyes. You would want to order a thyroid panel instead. So make sure you have the right correlation between your symptoms and the blood tests that you order. Mistake number 9 is relying too heavily on blood tests. You know, sometimes we think that blood tests are the gospel, but you can't diagnose everything with a blood test. In fact, you can't diagnose anything with a blood test. All a blood test tells you is whether you have a certain substance present in your body or not. It doesn't tell you what is causing that problem or what is causing that symptom. For example, if you have chronic fatigue, you could have a long list of things wrong with you. It could be your thyroid, it could be your adrenals, it could be your blood sugars, it could be your sleep, or it could be your stress. And all of these things can cause chronic fatigue. So just because your blood test comes back normal doesn't mean that there isn't something wrong with you. It's just that you don't have that particular condition that blood test checks for. And also, there are many conditions that you cannot check with a blood test. For example, you cannot check fibromyalgia, chronic pain, anxiety, depression, PTSD, allergies, asthma, autoimmune disorders. All of these things can't be diagnosed with a blood test. So just because your blood test is normal doesn't mean you're 100% healthy. The 10th mistake is relying too heavily on conventional medicine. I'm not against conventional medicine. I use conventional medicine when it's appropriate. However, conventional medicine focuses on treating disease. So they focus on treating things that are wrong with you. They don't focus on your overall health and well-being. And oftentimes conventional doctors don't have the training to diagnose problems that fall outside of disease. They're really good at diagnosing and treating diseases, but they're not really good at diagnosing and treating things like chronic fatigue, chronic pain, fibromyalgia, etc. So these are the type of problems that you may need to see a functional medicine provider for. Now, there's a lot more to this topic, but I hope this gives you a good starting point. Please let me know if you enjoyed this video. And if you did, make sure to give it a thumbs up. Make sure to subscribe to this channel for more helpful videos. And if you want to work with me directly, go to my website, nurseable.com, and click on the link that says schedule a call. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.